How's it going, everybody? My name's Release Radar. This is my Switch OLED, and I use this as my only gaming device for the last week. Let's talk about my thoughts. So starting things off, I want to talk about the most noticeable change between the Switch and the Switch OLED. And I actually have my Switch right here, and this is the Switch OLED. And that is the screen. The screen is noticeably larger on the OLED. However, the devices take up about the same physical frame. So I'm going to take these custom Joy-Cons off of the OLED, and I'm going to show you exactly what I mean by that. And so here's what I mean. Here is my Switch that I've had for about a year and a half, and here is the Switch OLED. And putting them side by side, they're basically the same size. So what the OLED does is take the existing frame of the standard Switch, which you can see those black bars are horrendous, and basically fills out more of the screen, leaving you with less intrusive bezels. And the screen also looks way sharper. It is an OLED display on the Switch OLED, as the name suggests, and it looks a lot better. So the screen is one of the biggest upsides that I noticed between the Switch OLED and then the Switch that's been out for a while. However, a downside to that is the fact that the Switch OLED right here has the same internals pretty much as the Switch that came out back in 2017. So there is a difference between these two devices when it comes to storage. This one has 32 gigabytes of internal storage. So this is the Switch from 2017, the red box, the gray box, and this is the Animal Crossing edition right here. The one that's been out for a while has 32 gigs of internal storage, and this has twice as much storage, but that's still only 64 gigs. So to spend time with this device, I had to take my micro SD card out of my Switch and put it in the OLED so I could install all the games I have. The games that I played throughout the week, I have Breath of the Wild, Minecraft, Borderlands, Skyrim, Grand Theft Auto Vice City, and Assassin's Creed Black Flag and Assassin's Creed Rogue. So those were the games that I spent the time with on this device because they're the games that I've put the most time into on this device, which is the original Switch. And so because the hardware on the inside is basically exactly the same, you're going to get the same experience as you do with the Switch that's been out since 2017. And that's just kind of the reality of the Switch OLED. It's basically just a Switch with a better screen. So I will say right out of the gate that if you spend most of your time with your Switch and you already have the Switch, the standard version, docked, you don't need the OLED. I understand that you might want to get it if you use it handheld, and that is a conversation I'll get into later on in the video, but the docked experience between the Switch and the Switch OLED is basically exactly the same. The only noticeable difference, in my opinion, is the fact that the OLED's dock has an Ethernet jack built in, and the Switch's original dock does not. So if you have a Switch and you're considering upgrading to the OLED, but you spend, let's say, 85% of your time playing your Switch docked, it's just not worth it. And it just leaves the OLED in this weird area. So if you already have a Switch, I honestly wouldn't recommend the OLED because it's basically the same exact experience. And I don't know why I had this thought in the back of my mind that, oh, it's the OLED. It's going to be such a better gaming experience. Like all the same problems that I have with my Switch, I have on the OLED. For example, the eShop is still the laggiest, worst online digital distribution shop I have ever used in my entire life. It lags horrendously bad whenever I try to do the simplest thing. I don't know why Nintendo can't fix the eShop because the Switch has sold a lot of units between the OLED, the standard version, and the Switch Lite. A lot of my friends either have a Switch or a Switch Lite, and the experience on the shop is horrible. If you're a big company and you make a lot of your revenue selling digital keys to games online with your digital marketplace, you would think that having your digital marketplace work would be an important thing to focus on. But I guess Nintendo just doesn't care because the eShop sucks. And it sucks on the Switch and it sucks on the Switch OLED. So going through the eShop and trying to find my games and download my games, it was a horrible experience. The eShop sucks. And that's just true on every version of the Switch. So the problems that you have with the Switch, for the most part, carry over to the Switch OLED. And that comes to the Joy-Cons as well. The Joy-Cons are basically the same thing to the point where at the beginning of the video, I had the OLED's Joy-Cons on my Switch from 2017. And those special Joy-Cons that I bought, let me grab them real quick. These things, the custom Joy-Cons that actually, fit your hand, I bought those for my Switch, and they work on the Switch OLED. So the Joy-Cons, you can basically swap them out between those two devices because they're basically the same form factor in your hand. A lot of the same problems you have are going to carry over. So my point with the Joy-Con conversation is the Joy-Cons suck. I don't like them. My hands versus a Joy-Con. Let me take one off my Switch. Look at this. How is this a comfortable way to play a game? Whose hands are these things made for? How are you supposed to be able to comfortably grip this? It's thin as hell. There's no curvature to it. Like if I grab an Xbox controller, hand fit good. Good controller. A Switch Joy-Con, hand no fit good. Like, I don't understand the design of the Joy-Cons. They're horrible. And that's a problem I have with my Switch that carried over to the OLED. So the second I got the OLED, I took off the Joy-Cons and put those custom ones on it so I can actually have a comfortable holding experience with it. Because I spent most of my time with the OLED undocked and in handheld mode because the docked experience is basically exactly the same between the two consoles. So I wanted to spend my time using it in handheld mode. And that's where the OLED really shines. You know, the screen is amazing, the speakers are better, the rumble feels better, the OLED really shines in handheld mode, but all of the existing problems you had on your Switch are just going to be here too, because this is just a Switch, but big screen. So now we're just going to get into the part that I kind of touched on earlier, but I'm just going to talk about who I recommend the Switch OLED to. So if you don't have a Switch, and you have the money for the OLED, and you can find one, get it. It is the superior experience among all the Switch consoles. But if you have a Switch already and you're thinking about it, it's not go out and spend $300 on a new console better. So if you're like me and you already have a Switch and you were thinking about getting the OLED, it's just not worth it. And it sucks. I really do wish I could say go out, run out, buy it. It's worth the money. But if you have a Switch already, and by Switch, I mean Switch 2017, not Switch Lite, it's not worth it if you already have this Switch. But if you have a Switch Lite and you're considering upgrading, then I do recommend the OLED. And the reason is you get an all-around better handheld experience. I do recommend changing the Joy-Cons because these suck. And you can also dock it. So not only will you get a better handheld experience than what you get out of your Switch Lite, but you can also dock it and play games on the TV, which you can't do with the Switch Lite. So if you don't have a Switch yet, or if you have a Switch Lite, I say yes, get the OLED if you're interested in it and you can afford it. There is one other big if though, and that is if you can find it. So I recommend this device if you fall under the categories that I previously addressed, if you can afford it, and if you really think you want it. But the problem is finding it. Now, this is not a problem I had with my Series S review, which, by the way, thank you guys for the support on that. That's been absolutely insane. I went from like 390 subs to 522 just because of that video, so I really appreciate that. Getting a little off topic here, but it's if you can find it. The thing is with the Xbox Series S, I've gone to Target, I've gone to Best Buy, I've gone to GameStop, I've gone to Walmart. I've even seen one at a Sam's Club. So you can find the Series S out in the wild. And I've also seen a couple Series X's out in the wild. But the Switch has been impossible to find. I've been trying to do this video since I made the one on the Series S because this is something else I was also interested in checking out because they're at around the same price point. But you can't find the Switch OLED anywhere. It's really hard to find. So if you want a gaming experience, like if you're a new gamer, I would honestly recommend the Series S more than the Switch because while Nintendo is a little bit more family friendly, not only do you get more performance, you get more options for games, you get Game Pass, and you can actually find the Series S. And the Series S costs about as much as the Switch. I'll put the pricing up on screen right now, but the Switch OLED and the Series S aren't far off in cost. And I think the Series S is just a much better value, especially if you pair it with Game Pass. Because there's no Game Pass for Nintendo. PlayStation just came out with a competitor that's a joke. PlayStation's premium thing, it's horrible. They're not going to be able to compete with Game Pass with that model, but they're trying. And competition is good for the consumer, right? But the problem is I can't find the Switch OLED anywhere. And so if you have a Switch Lite and you're thinking about upgrading, or if you don't have a Switch at all and you want one, I recommend the OLED, but you might not be able to find it. And if you can't find it, it's still okay just getting the Switch, because as I've said multiple times throughout the video, the experience isn't that different. In fact, I'm going to put the nail in the coffin on this. I'm going to take the Joy-Cons off of both the Switch and the Switch OLED, and I'm just going to put the little boxes on top of each other and show you guys that it's literally exactly the same size. This is exactly the same size as this. That's the OLED. That's the Switch. They're like exactly the same size. Major difference is more screen. And so if you don't care that much about bezels and you really want to switch and you can't find one of the OLEDs, just get the Switch. The experience is honestly not that different. But these have just been my thoughts on the Switch OLED. It's a weird console, and I can recommend it if you can find one. But the problem is, this is still being scalped. Scalpers are still scouring eBay, finding all of these that they can, and basically charging $400 for it. And I don't recommend doing that. I don't recommend spending $400 on the Switch OLED. At that point, just get a PS5. It's just, the Switch OLED is a weird one. I really think that Nintendo was originally planning on making this device the Switch Pro, but circumstances out of their control happened, and now we're here with a Switch 1.4. It's a strange device. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. Let me know what your thoughts are about the OLED, whether or not you got one, whether or not you want one, and why. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.
Really?